What's up, everybody? This is Gallant. I'm here with Nick, talking through the album for hardknocktv. I hope you guys check out the album. It's out October 25th.
I know you're tired of this argument. Why don't we sleep on it? Sleep on it. Complicated, but your mind is just the opposite. I wanna sleep on it. Sleep on it.
Really what I want to do with this interview is get to know the man behind the music a little bit more.
Let's do it.
I like to start interviews thinking if there was a movie made about your life. Opening scene is coming through Maryland into your childhood home. What are we seeing? What are we hearing? What are we smelling?
You're smelling seafood for sure. You're hearing my parents talk a lot, the television on probably, the suburban landscape, and you're seeing me kind of in the corner doing my own thing.
So that was from a young age. You were doing your own thing?
Yeah, definitely. I was kind of I was on the quiet side, and I liked spending a lot of time just by myself, you know. And I think when I eventually discovered music, you know, even that was like a very kind of isolated activity for me. That was like I get to be alone and just do my own thing and not worry about what anybody thinks about it, or not trying to like perform the creativity, just trying to put it all into the computer that I'm in front of and trying not to overthink what I'm doing.
Do you remember what those early like music discoveries were?
Oh man, I mean, I used to rebel a lot against the traditional R&B. Like I really like Babyface. Like For the Cool in You, I listened to a bunch, and then Tender Lover, I went back, and then that's what introduced me to some of the like his writing. So it's kind of like starting from like the mid 90s and then going backwards with him. But I don't know, I wanted to try to subvert, I think, what was expected of me. You know, I felt like at that time it was like if you're black, you know, you have to listen to hip hop and R&B. You can't listen to anything else. And so, you know, I tried to kind of experiment with the things that, you know, the other kids in the neighborhood were listening to, which is like pre-My Chemical Romance and, you know, pre-scene stuff that was just popping out in the early 2000s. But really, I just wanted to make stuff that helped me, that I felt like I couldn't find anywhere else, you know? Like I remember writing this song, this really bad song called like Standing Still or something, and it kind of had like a Japanese chord progression. It was like kind of like catchy, like at the closing scene of like an anime. And then I just put these like cheesy R&B lyrics on top of it. And even though it was a terrible song to me, it was like, oh, cool, I can sit and listen to this, and this is what I've imagined would exist in the world, but it doesn't, so it's cool that I got to make it. And I feel like I just kind of never stopped doing that type of stuff.
Do you remember what that song was about?
I think it was like, oh, you know, I was in this relationship, and then, you know, she's acting crazy, and then we're I think the lyric was like, she thinks we're moving, but we're standing still. It was so bad. It was, it was one of the worst songs ever made. No, I'm telling you, but it was just me like putting a bunch of different things that I like together, and just being able to play around with that just opened my eyes. I was like, wow, I can make something that doesn't exist, that I wish did exist, even if it's just me who's gonna enjoy listening to it.
How old were you around that time?
Oh man, I must have been like 12, 13, around that time.
Like, was it that time, or was there a different time when you're like, this is what I want to do, like this is my calling?
I mean, it was weird, man, because I feel like I was so used to people just calling my stuff trash, and just kind of, not in like a malicious way, it was just, you know, it was a small kind of town, it was like a suburban town, so it's like a lot of, you know, politics, a lot of real estate. It wasn't like, you know, a creative musical environment really for me. You know, the only times that I really, you know, made stuff was, you know, alone. Like I wasn't like jamming with my homies, and it wasn't like some, you know, Jackson 5 type of scenario. After a while, I just kind of it didn't matter to me what people would think, and I didn't think about what I was doing in terms of making a career out of it or making money out of it. You know, it was just like if you're a kid who likes to draw, you're going to be drawing in the back of the class, you know? So I was just a kid who like wrote songs sometimes, and I would just do that in my bedroom when I had a free second.
What kept you going? I know at an early age, sometimes when some people aren't encouraging of our dreams, it's really easy to be like, all right, well, I'm gonna go try something else. People are telling me this is whack, but I'm gonna keep pushing through and keep working at it.
Yeah, I don't know. I definitely got discouraged a lot. Like I had a YouTube channel, like early YouTube, you know, and I used to sing like Usher songs and like Neo songs on there, and it was bad. And I was like, you know, I was like 12, 13 still, and half the comments would be like, "Oh, this is the worst thing I've ever heard." Oh, like the occasional "kill yourself," like, "Ah, my ears are bleeding," like, "Fuck you," and then there would be like one where it was like, "That was good, that was good," and then I would print out like all the good comments, and then I would just, you know, collect those, and eventually it was just kind of irrelevant if somebody wanted to shit on my shit. Like it just didn't, that wasn't what my motivations were being driven by, you know? It was like making the song from scratch was therapeutic for me, and then performing the song, even if it's just to my webcam at the time, was like practice for me, and that's all that mattered. You know?
It's crazy that you bring up YouTube comments, because I feel like people don't really know the impact of their comments. Sometimes they're just sitting at the keyboard and they're just kind of like whatever, they're having a bad day, so they take it out on whatever they're seeing. But that one YouTube comment where somebody says something positive will just like put a battery pack and help you keep going.
Exactly.
Let's talk a little bit about moving from Maryland to NYC. What made you want to go to New York in the first place?
I think it was just proximity, you know, because you know, from Maryland to New York, it's like a 2.5, 3 hour train ride away. So I think it's natural for kids to want to like rebel against what environment they grew up in, you know. Not all the time, but for me it was like I conquered suburbia. I was like, all right, the woods, suburbia, Cheesecake Factory, Applebee's, I conquered all this stuff. Let's see what the next level is. And so I was 17, I have a late birthday, so I was always kind of the younger of the group. And so I went to New York and just wanted to see what it was about, you know. I just needed like a change of scenery.
Because you were going to NYU, right?
Yeah, I was at NYU.
What was the feedback that you were getting at that time, and how did that impact you as an artist?
I remember it was mixed. You know, like I went to this school called Gallant, and it was like the individualized study school. So you could like create your own major, quote unquote, and just throw together whatever you kind of wanted to do. And at the end of the year, there's this thing like called like a colloquium where you read a bunch of books, and then that somehow revolve around the topic that you're majoring in. Then you talk with a bunch of professors about it. And I think to me it just represented like I knew I wanted to go to New York. I knew I wanted to go to school, but I wanted freedom to just kind of, like with music, just mash a bunch of shit that I liked together. And in high school, like the last 2 years, I did a lot of independent study. So I would pick a topic. I think at that time I was talking about how they need to get rid of physical like CDs and just switch everything over to the iTunes store. And
you're early in the game.
Yeah, because I was like a Kazaa, BearShare, LimeWire stan. You know, like music should be free, and I'm glad that we're getting to that point. But I was basically studying that topic for 2 years in high school, and I liked the freedom of like, cool, I have class from, you know, I don't even remember what time you show up at school, like 8 or like 7 or whatever it was, until like noon. And then when I had a car in high school, I would like go home, get some lunch, maybe like do some more research, come back to the library. It felt like I was kind of doing my own thing, you know, and so I got addicted to that. And New York was kind of similar, you know, like I used the recording studios in Steinhardt to write more terrible songs. I, you know, hung out at the library, you know, during like my study period, and just picked a topic, wrote some papers on that, and then it let me like study Japanese all through college too. So I did try at one point to kind of apply to the Clive Davis Institute, and they turned me down. But me and all the professors are homies now, you know, and they have like really good intentions with their program, and so overall, it was just a cool experience. I got to sample a lot of different things.
I know for myself as an introvert, when I go to New York, sometimes it gets a little overwhelming just because there's so much going on that sometimes my energy gets drained. Did you encounter that at all, or because you were specifically in college, did you feel like you kind of had the space to move on your own?
No, I mean, I felt that all the time. I think at first I was riding in on this like young, kind of arrogant, don't give a fuck about anything attitude, so that kind of carried me a little bit. and then I got jaded like real quick, and every situation was like the battery is dead, you know. And I didn't like how, like, I would walk through the streets, and then at some point it was kind of like every person was like an obstacle, or like every person was like an enemy, and you're just like, either you're like, don't make eye contact. If you make eye contact, look mean, you know, don't show any emotion, like intimidate all these people, like walk through as if you're the hottest shit on the planet, you know. And I didn't like it up to a point. And then, you know, I remember I got like a McFlurry, like an Oreo McFlurry. I went to the Subway, and then all the wind picked up all the dirt from the Subway, put it like directly into the McFlurry. And I was like, fuck this, bro. Like, I gotta get out of here, you know. It's the best city in the world, but it just gets old mad quick, you know.
Especially, I think, as an introvert, it's just for somebody who like needs to step out and get some space sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, at least in LA, like I could go hiking or I could do other things where it's like I can have some me time to recharge.
Exactly.
In New York, it just feels like you're just in the middle of everything. And I think for people who aren't wired that way, and where like you feel like your energy is drawn away from you, it can get exhausting real quick. Like I can't do New York for more than 5 days because then I'm just like, all right, there's just too many people. It's just too crowded.
Exactly. It was sad when I was taking like the subway to Staten Island ferry, and then getting on the ferry and then going over to Staten Island just to sit in like the yard of the mall that they had. Then I'm like, yo, this is whack. Like,
how did that move to LA change things?
I think LA just kind of, even though ironically it is LA, you know, it at least gave me the illusion that I could kind of navigate California on my own and you know, create my own reality instead of being locked in to New York's very rigid grid system, you know. It was just a refreshing change.
At any point in this time, did you question yourself? I mean, you're hearing your classmates, professor, whoever it is, like making certain criticisms of your music. Do you think, oh man, like maybe this isn't for me, or what kept you going?
Yeah, I mean, like at this point, like people were telling me, like all through college, people were still like, you're trash. You know, your music's not good. I got rejected from the school that I wanted to apply to. Like it was like background noise, you know, to a point. And then I think subconsciously it's like, worst case scenario, even if it is complete garbage, I just don't see how that's justification not to make music, you know, if people think it's garbage.
Because for you, it's just about the self-expression. It's about getting your thoughts out. So it didn't really matter what other people interpret it to be. Exactly.
Plus you have like, you know, like a dude recorded Kung Fu Fighting. You know, it's like, you have the worst songs ever made. So, you know, it's not really, it doesn't mean that it can't exist. You know, it's like, that's not what it's about. It's not, you know, you put things into the universe and then the world, I feel like, is just gonna take it how they're supposed to take it.
Andy Warhol has a great quote that I always talk to artists about. He says, the job as an artist is to make art. He's like, while you decide whether it's good or bad art, my job's to go make other art.
Exactly, yeah.
Which I love because it kind of takes away the thought that the artist has to be there for the public's opinion of whether it's good or bad. It's like, that's not the job of the artist to decide.
Exactly.
Is that something you can relate to at all? Or?
Absolutely. I mean, he said a lot, like he was ahead of his time, like for real. He said a lot of smart shit. Yeah, it's just not really what an artist should be concerned about, I don't think.
How did you see the LA R&B scene when you came here? I feel like a lot of people don't really, I think LA has a pretty good R&B scene.
Yeah, definitely.
It's overlooked for some reason.
Definitely. I mean, when I moved and when I was doing music, it was like 2013. It was still kind of R&B rebellion a little bit, I think. Because, you know, you had like the new Jamie Foxx joint and like the new, you know, you had like that contemporary R&B that was still dominating the mainstream circuits, and then people were going to like the music blogs to find an alternative to that, you know. And so I think, you know, I was deep into the blogs. I was deep into the like more ambient lo-fi scene. You know, I think like How to Dress Well was probably one of my top listened to artists at that moment. So
what blogs were you checking for at that era?
I really liked the line of Best Fit. Stereo Gum had like some cool like genre division type of things. Hype Machine really was like my go-to, even though that's an aggregator. Like that was, I felt like my generation like especially during that time, everyone congregated on Hype Machine and just played the top 10 and if something stuck, then they dug a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
And so
That was like the pre-SoundCloud.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or even if you're in SoundCloud and you're like lost, that just gave you like a roadmap to how to navigate it, so. And it was just inspiring to see that there was a subculture of R&B, and I felt like I wanted to be a part of that. So I kind of tried to put my spin on it, and I think that was right before I went and toured with like Sufjan Stevens, and so I was really kind of in that like alternative, world for a bit.
By this moment, are you starting to feel like you belong, or are you still kind of feeling like a outsider in terms of doing music, mainly just not even caring how people are reacting to it?
Yeah, man, I think I reached like a really like low point. I think like when I look back, it was like because I didn't give a fuck about anything, man. Like I didn't care about anything at all. Like what people thought, I didn't care about myself. It was kind of like autopilot, but it was like reckless pilot. It was just kind of like, it was cool in a way because it was freeing. It was like the anxiety was very low, but it was not the coolest way I could have approached it. But it was cool to like meet a lot of people, make a lot of experimental music, try a bunch of things out, and it somehow got me to build like a small team at that time that was at least committed to my unique spin on the genre.
When you look at R&B, where a lot of like the male leads are usually like sexy, smooth, all this different stuff. How do you see yourself into that? For example, I remember the first time I heard Far Side's Passing Me By, and I was just like, oh shit, other people aren't smooth with women? Oh, I was like, all right, I'm not the only one who's going through this. Like, how do you feel in this landscape where for a long time, like that was a thing? It's like, oh, if you're an R&B dude, you got to have 2 women on each arm.
Exactly, yeah.
How did you see yourself fitting into that paradigm?
I'm not sure, man. I think even if you are smooth with the ladies, you don't always have to talk about it. There are other things that can be going on in someone's head. So I think at that time, part of my like rebellious nature was just kind of like, I don't feel happy all the time. I don't feel great. Sometimes I'm angry. Definitely not smooth. Very awkward. So I kind of wanted to highlight that as much as possible, But it's tough. I mean, R&B is definitely rooted in that, feeling of like love and navigating a relationship and creating this fantasy that, only probably a smaller percentage than it seems of kids in like, very specific communities want to grow up and aspire to be, even if it's just for a weekend in some club somewhere. But I do think that, the more we challenge ourselves to kind of hit different storylines and hit different pockets of the human experience for any genre, that's just going to make it richer.